I feel highly honored to welcome and introduce Ambassador Virendra Gupta, retired as a diplomat in 2016 after completing 37 years with the Indian Foreign Services. He served as India's High Commissioner in Tanzania, Trinidad and Tobago, and finally South Africa. He also served as Deputy Director General of India's largest security studies think tank, the Institute of Defence Studies and Analysis, and as Director General of the Indian Council for Cultural Relations. He is currently associated with a number of non-governmental organizations and think tanks and takes an active interest in international relations and public policy issues. As President of well-known NGO Antar Rashtriya Sahyog Parishad, he is particularly focused on Indian diaspora and neighborhood issues. He has edited several books including Pakistan-occupied Kashmir, Untold Story, India's Neighborhood Challenges Ahead, and Energy Security Asia-Pacific Perspective, and has contributed chapters in various books including a recent publication, The Modi Doctrine, New Paradigm in India's Foreign Policy. He has been regularly writing on topical issues in various prestigious newspapers and magazines. So ladies and gentlemen, please welcome and put your hands together for Ambassador Virendra Gupta.
Most welcome, Ambassador Shri Virendra Gupta ji. Let me introduce you with everybody, Gupta ji. We have President of European Yoga Federation, Amandio Bilaci ji from Italy, welcoming you.
We are honored for your presence here.
Thank you. Thank you very much for inviting me.
Thank you so much.
We have Professor Vijay Reddy ji, President of Project Self USA, welcoming you, Virendra Gupta ji.
Namaskar.
Namaste. Pleased to meet you.
We have Andre ji, who just spoke from Russia, welcoming you.
Приветствую вас, мира, радости, удачи.
My greetings and wishing for peace and love and joy.
We have Amandio ji from Portugal, welcoming you.
Namaste.
Namaskar.
Yes, friends, Dr. Vikrant, Matthew, namaste. Thank you.
Perfect.
Thank you.
So, stage is all yours, respected Virendra Gupta ji. We all are so much eager to listen to you. All yours. Thank you.
Dr. Tomar and all the wonderful people that I've met online today. I think you all are doing wonderful work in terms of promoting India's goodwill, India's cultural heritage, which you're carrying forward. Nobody has any monopoly on what India's culture is, and I'm glad to see people from different multiracial backgrounds engaged in promoting yoga and other important cultural attributes of India. So first of all, I'd like to thank Dr. Vikrant Singh Tomar, his organization United Consciousness, with whom I had an honor and privilege to work very closely during the G20 days of India's presidency. We were together part of the Civil Society 20. I'd also like to thank European Yoga Federation, which is actually hosting this event, for inviting me to share a few thoughts on Vasundhaiva Kutumbakam and how, in practical terms, we all, when we talk about Vasundhaiva Kutumbakam, we get swayed into discussing the moral imperatives. But, international relations is not run by moral imperatives. It is the practical considerations which have to be looked at. Now, this term came into focus on the international relations stage during India's presidency of G20, because Prime Minister Modi, in his wisdom, he made this an underlying theme of India's G20 presidency. But in India, we have known this part of the aspect of the philosophy. It's actually an integral part of Hindu philosophy. Our eternal thought process, which is sometimes reflected in our pluralism, in our tolerance, in our acceptance of each other. I think a verse in Maha Upanishad talks about this philosophy of Vasundhaiva Kutumbakam, basically signifying that the whole world is one family. It underlines that the oneness of this universe, and that we are interconnected and interdependent. Now, that is not rocket science. Everybody can understand it. Now, what has happened is that we've had a lot of technical advances. We've now, materially a much better living condition than what it was earlier. But it hasn't changed very much in terms of peace and harmony in the world. As it was earlier, the more powerful people, the more powerful countries, they remain engaged. They remain inclined to exploit and dominate the weaker people. We have battled with conventional narratives of power balance. This is what we understand very well in international relations. And even now, a lot of people tend to explain things in terms of power balance. An American professor gave the theory of clash of civilizations. And I think it seems to me sometimes that as if we want to, make it come true. Even if there are indications, even if there are signals which point to the contrary, contrary thinking, we want to ignore it. Now, all of it has not led to any solution of conflicts. In fact, if anything, we have more conflicts today than what it was every year. In fact, succeedingly, we leading into more conflicts. We're leading into a more tense world. So I think all of this points out to an imperative need to search for alternative narrative. And I think Vasundhaiva Kutumbakam points to a possible approach. Now, I'm not saying that that is the only approach. I'm also not saying that that is something that will undoubtedly work. But I think since our current theories, current approaches have not led us anywhere, I think there is merit in giving this alternative approach an opportunity. And now, one thing I would also clarify is that a lot of people in India begin to think that this is something very unique to Indian culture. And I think that is not true at all, because in many different cultures, this thought you find very inherent, and different people at different points of time in different geographies have thought about this approach as being possible to leading to greater peace and harmony. I was in South Africa for a few years, and in fact, I came across the philosophy of Ubuntu there, which basically translates to I am because you are. So my existence is dependent upon your existence, and I think that basically signifies interdependence, and that my good is inherent in your own good. So I think we have to give it a serious thought. Now, there is a misconception in India and worldwide, is that a lot of people seem to think that this Vasundhaiva Kutumbakam, which basically means that the whole world is one family, is that you only have to work for the good of the others and the good of the universe. And that somehow pursuing self-interest or pursuing national interest is a very dirty trade, is an unacceptable trade. Now, I'd like to clarify that self-interest is, when you talk in terms of a human being, an individual, self-interest is essentially a basic human instinct. It's a basic human instinct for self-preservation. Now, if you don't look after yourself, nobody else is going to look after yours. And by that logic, if self-interest is not a dirty word, then national interest is also not a dirty word. So I think all countries can be reasonably expected to pursue their national interest. But I think the point of difference comes here is that the national interest does not have to be, in the same manner that self-interest does not have to be pursued in a very narrow and rigid framework, that you have to be broad-minded. You have to understand it in the perspective of a very, very broad framework, and not just broad framework, but also a longer term time frame. And if you begin to look at things in the broader context, in the broader framework, in the broader perspective, and also in terms of longer time frame, then I think things will begin to clarify very easily that there is no contradiction between self-interest or national interest and the broader good of everybody, broader good of all the nations, broader good of the universe and the world. Now, I can give you many examples. Take, for instance, nuclear weapons. Now, nuclear weapons, a stockpile has been kept by many countries, essentially with a view to it's a currency of power, but more than the currency of power, it is a means to securing, national security. That you have nuclear weapons so that you will not be attacked by other countries. You will be able to defend yourself. I think those countries which have nuclear weapons forget that this is a technology which is essentially today a textbook technology. Any country can develop nuclear weapons. And if more and more countries have nuclear weapons, then this world is going to be inherently very, very unsafe. And if there is nuclear detonation in Pakistan, then India is not safe because nuclear radiation knows no political boundary. So I think, if you extend that logic, very clearly, the world is safer and my country is safer if there are no nuclear weapons in the world. And yet, look at, how, kind of absence of wisdom in the mankind is that nobody is giving it any serious thought. Countries are not prepared to discuss nuclear disarmament. The countries which have nuclear weapons want to keep nuclear weapons, and they want to prevent other countries from acquiring nuclear weapons at any cost, and they know that it's a losing battle. Successively, you have more and more countries acquiring nuclear weapons. Climate change is another very good example that unless you take care of the climate, unless you take care of the ecology of the world, you are not going to benefit. Because if there is an ozone layer depletion and if there is global warming, it is going to affect the entire world. So no matter how developed you are, but unless you deal with these problems which are facing the world, so what nations have to not only do things for themselves, but nations have to fix things for the world, and they have to act in the broader interest of the of the international community, the whole world, and their own interest is inherent in the overall good. International terrorism, epidemics, we've seen epidemics, the whole world was battered by COVID-19. And at that time, could any country take a view that, look, we will only secure corona in our own country? What about corona across the border? If we somehow get rid of the coronavirus in our own country, and there is corona left in Nepal or Bangladesh, would it not travel back to India? So the point is that there are so many of these difficult areas, difficult issues, where it is very clear that we have to act in a broader context. And I have to give you one more example and look at how the broader time frame. We all know that how the conditions were in Afghanistan when it was under Soviet occupation. The big countries were driven by Cold War mentality. America's biggest imperative at that time was to get Soviet Union out of Afghanistan. They tried many means, military means. They exerted all kinds of pressure, didn't work. So what they did, they took the help of Islamic radicals and created a very radical Islamic movement, organizations, provided them funding, provided them arms, and that eventually led to expulsion of the Soviets from Afghanistan. But then those very forces went after the American interest. And I think the biggest tragedy to have ever struck America was caused by those elements. We all know what happened on 11th September 2001. And I don't think that America would wish anything like that to be repeated. So what I'm saying is that you have to look at things in a broader perspective. And when you begin to look at things in broader perspective, we suddenly realize that our good, our interests are not served by merely pursuing our national interest in a narrow perspective, but by also looking at the welfare of the others. Because in the global good, in the community's good, is our good is inherent in that. So I think it is quite clear to me that if we are looking at ushering in harmony and peace in the world, we will have to give up the conventional theories and conventional approaches. Matching force to force, creating a balance of power, rapid acquisition of military hardware, nuclear weapons is not going to lead peace, is not going to lead to harmony, is not going to lead to prosperity and development. And I think, that you have to accept the development of others. And in the development of others lies our broad interest. So with these few words, I'd like to once again thank Dr. Tomar for giving me this opportunity to share some of my thoughts. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir. It is heartwarming listening to you. It's a speech by a statesman, and I think you brought practical dimensions, which is more contemporary to yoga, and you gave emphasis to the importance of our common good. You started your speech with power dynamics in the world. You mentioned, then you went to Africa, where you said that Ubuntu is I am because of you. Then you gave emphasis to what is yoga in the world. My good and your good is one. You said that my good is inherent in your good. You mentioned that self-interest and national interest are important things, but they should never be defined in narrow dimensions. You gave emphasis to the broad definition of goodness, like largest goodness to the biggest number of people. You gave example of nuclear disarmament, climate change, corona, and geopolitical situation happened in Afghanistan and USSR and USA, and the impact of it in the times to came. So thank you very much, respected Virendra Gupta ji. May I request President European Yoga Federation to extend few words of thanks to him.
I only want to thank you from my heart for these very nice words that you spend for us. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. Very
May I
good.
request President Project Self USA to extend few words of thank and gratitude towards our chief guest.
Sure. Namaste, Virendra ji. And in such a small time, 10 minutes, you covered such a broad topic and put it into perspective. That's a tremendous that is. Thank you so much for your words. Yeah.
Thank you.
We acknowledge presence of Marco Bianco also. He has also joined, thanking you from Croatia, Virendra Gupta ji. Amandio ji is also extending his thanks, and Andre ji is also extending his thanks to you. So 3 continents together thanking you, Virendra Gupta ji, for being here today. May I request that before you sign out, we have created a small video for United Consciousness, which is only 1-minute video. Before you sign out, if you can just give us a little bit of attention to that video, the effort made by the creator will be paid off. And then you can sign off for your further work. Thank you very much. Thank you. Pranav.
Welcome to United Consciousness, where one consciousness, one being, is more than just a belief.